August 30th, 2021. As we move along into the final quarter, we draw closer to ending one of the craziest years of our lives. The events that have transpired in the past 18 months have shook the entire world, pushing it to adapt and change in ways never before thought possible. Many are now calling this pandemic environment the new normal. So much uncertainty lies ahead, but as we move forward, we begin to ignore the biggest problem facing our generation, the ticking time bomb that is the US economy. Why are so many people convinced that the downfall of America is imminent and our golden age of prosperity and world dominance is coming to a sad end? In this video, we explain with 3 chapters, beginning with number 1, greed. To understand what is going on in today's economy, you have to understand 2008. For those of you old enough to remember, the US was not going to let the entire financial system collapse, so to intervene and keep the party going, our politicians and economic leaders decided to bail out the banks. Now in this video, we are not going to get into the details, but the plan called for a massive injection of what is essentially the financial equivalent of steroid use. The US Central Bank enacted a number of policies to help ease the stress and bring prosperity to the American economy. This included lowering interest rates to nearly zero, expanding the Fed balance sheet, helping out individual banks, and buying up MSBs. Now that may sound like Spanish to you, but in simple terms, it just means that the Federal Reserve used its powers to essentially print dollars and jam them into certain parts of the financial system. When you hear people on TV say the expansion of the federal balance sheet or credit easing, they are basically describing the process of, quote, printing money, increasing the money supply, which according to history and most economists creates inflationary pressure. The idea behind this is simple. If a country could simply print money and finance all of its citizens and infrastructure this way, we would be living in nirvana. No point of paying taxes or even working if the government can just use its printing press to supply you with everything you need and they need. The problem is that the infinite money glitch doesn't exist in real life. If you print too much, your currency gets devalued, and you may even suffer a complete currency collapse, something that most Americans are very unfamiliar with since the last time the US even faced a taste of inflationary pressure was way back in the 1970s. What we are told today is that the infinite money glitch does indeed work, at least for now. We've been printing money excessively since 2009. As of March of 2020, these types of policies have only gotten significantly worse. At the same time, we really haven't seen any significant inflationary pressure. This is why Warren Buffett and others like to say that we found nirvana. Politicians have gotten addicted to the money printer, and so far there have not been any side effects. Ultimately, we all know there's no such thing as the infinite money glitch. This wild idea that is now supported by many academics is being pushed to its limit. Citizens who were paid stimulus checks are now questioning the very idea of money. If the government handed out multiple checks with no consequences, why are we not keeping the party going? All of us rational people know the answer to that question, and unfortunately when things do unwind as a result of these policies, they are going to implode the entire financial system. Even Warren Buffett, who is famously anti-Bitcoin and anti-gold, had this to say about paper currency back in 2010. Take a listen.
I will guarantee you that farmland over 100 years is going to be gold, and so are equities.
Why do you think gold bugs get so irate? Because they really come out.
Yeah, it's very interesting. If you go on CNBC and say that bonds are kind of a poor investment, you know, people don't get mad at you. You don't even hear from the Treasury. I mean, you can knock almost any investment, and people may get a little irritated. But when you talk about gold, and of course that says something about their motivations for ownership. They want people to agree with them. They want everybody to get so scared they run to a cave with gold. And caves might be a better investment than gold. I mean, at least they're not producing more caves all the time. So they want people to be as afraid as they are, because that's what's going to produce an increase in prices. Incidentally, they're right to be afraid of paper money. I mean, they have their basic premise that paper money around the world is going to get worth less and less and less over time is absolutely correct. But
you just disagree with the investment theory beyond that.
Yeah. Where they run from that, and they should run from it, is where, in my view, they make the mistake. But they have a correct basic premise. Mm-hmm.
So Buffett, who has been anti-gold and anti-Bitcoin for quite some time, actually says something very interesting there at the end. He basically agrees with many of the reasons people love Bitcoin and gold, stating that they have every right to fear the dollar. He, however, strongly disagrees that moving your money into a worthless piece of rock is a good idea. He'd rather invest in good companies that provide solid returns for decades. His right-hand man, Charlie Munger, also agrees, but he adds that the situation for the US is far worse than what many claim. At 97 years old, Munger does not hold back when speaking about the path America seems to be headed down, one which Warren actually disagrees with him on, claiming that America always finds a way back, often being quoted saying never bet against us. Take a listen to this interesting exchange back in 2005 and make sure you stick around for Charlie's part. Quite an amazing answer.
Overall, I'm an enormous bull on the country. I mean, over time, this is the most remarkable success story in the history of the world, if you think about it. I mean, in 1790, we had less than 4 million people in this country. There were 290 million people in China. There were 100 million people in Europe, and they all had the same intellect we had. They were in the same general climate. They had lots of natural resources. And 215 years later, those 3.9 million people, I think, actually, have 39 million people, I think, actually, have 30% or so of the world's GDP. So it does not make sense to bet against America. That doesn't mean all our policies are smart or anything, but I do not get pessimistic on the country. I worry about the big worry is what can be done by either terrorists or governments that have access to nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons. But in terms of the basic economics of the country, your children are going to live better than you live, and your grandchildren are going to live better than your children live. And we do not focus on macro factors. Charlie?
Well, I agree with you that the economics of the country are probably going to increase for a considerable period ahead. But I suspect that in very important ways we are at or near the apex of a great civilization.
You heard it here first, folks.
Whenever I think about the current state of the US, I always remember this quote from Charlie. At the end of the day, we don't know when the house of cards will fall. It has proved many bears wrong over the last 13 years. Experts were screaming that hyperinflation was coming even after the 2008 Fed injections. Now, more than a decade later, QE, interest rates, and many other Fed policies have expanded exponentially, yet the US dollar has remained very stable. And those predictions of hyperinflation were dead wrong. Regardless of these facts, there is no denying that doing this, while keeping rates at nearly zero and pushing the national debt to levels never before seen, is making many doubt the structure of our entire financial system. The Federal Reserve can claim it has not caused any severe inflation based on CPI numbers, but this chart of the S&P 500 is to many a clear indication that it has caused severe inflation in the stock market, pushing the asset bubble to help the 1% while leaving the middle class behind. Sooner or later, the infinite money glitch will get exposed and the US dollar will suffer a collapse. Predicting when is indeed impossible, and selling out of the market or buying up gold to rush into a cave is not going to help you. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed.